Mr. Bowman for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to honor the lives of those lost due to senseless violence in my district. Leon Wayne, age 26, gun violence. Shavar Williams, age 28, gun violence. Corey Lowe, age 31, stabbing victim. Richard Black, age 39, gun violence. Joseph Ramirez, age 43, gun violence. Ray Harding, age 55, gun violence. Aaliyah Waders, gun violence. Marilyn Cotto Montañez, age 18, gun violence. Guy Van Loo, Jr., age 18, gun violence. Jeremy Logan, age 32, gun violence. Amari Ellis, age 18, gun violence. Warren Klahar, age 35, gun violence. Olivia Green, age 15, fentanyl overdose. Madam Speaker, I ask that we recognize a moment of silence for the lives lost in my district due to senseless violence. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the pandemic of senseless violence is not new. If you live in a poverty-stricken community, and if you are Black and Latino in these communities, you are more susceptible to acts of senseless violence. When I was in high school, trying to just be a good student and play on the football team, I ended up caught up in a situation where I was almost shot and killed. A few months later, at a party with some friends, just trying to go out and have a good time, I ended up in a situation where I was almost shot and killed. If it weren't for sheer luck, I would not be standing here as a member of Congress today. Thankfully, at that time, I was able to move out of my community and move to a suburban community where it was much less likely for me to end up in a situation where I could be shot and killed. I have so many friends and family members who did not have the luxury of moving out and the privilege of moving out of their community. And as a result, they ended up dead at some very young ages, some 18, some 21, some even younger. And oftentimes when we have these conversations, we point to the perpetrators of these acts of violence and of these crimes, and we identify them as bad individuals. And we say that we need law enforcement to respond to remove those bad individuals from these situations. And we think that that method is enough to end the violence in these communities. But we've invested in law enforcement for decades, the '94 crime bill being one example of how we've made such investments and targeted highly violent communities. But the violence hasn't gone away. And the violence has only been exacerbated by a COVID-19 pandemic that has isolated many and has also created a mental health crisis. So I ask and I beg this chamber to recognize that this is not just about individual bad actors in communities. Poverty is a policy choice, and the trauma related to poverty and the lack of opportunity in so many of our communities will continue to lead to increases in violence that we see in poverty-stricken communities. We have to invest in education, healthcare, jobs, housing, mentorship, and so many other programs that could literally save the lives of our children before they ever decide to pick up a gun. And lastly, and very quickly, we passed H.R. 8, common sense gun reform legislation in the House
Gentleman's
this
time has
year,
expired.
and the Senate still has not acted on that legislation. And 70% of the incidents of gun violence that take place in New York are done with guns that come from outside of New York. So we
Gentleman's
have
time
to
has
move this
expired.
gun legislation in the Senate. Thank you so much.